Live and waiting for people to start coming in. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on the Q&A, and I'll keep an eye on the chat for questions, and then introduce those when you reach a breathing point. So.
And then you'll put both Yasha and I up on the.
You're in a little tiny window in the top of the screen, so they'll
Perfect.
be able to see you the whole time. I am going to turn off my camera and mute myself during your presentation. So, and
Do you
hello,
see this? Like 3 windows?
I
I
see
only see one.
we see the presentation, and then I see the three little windows at the top with the three of us. So you're going to be fine. Just hello to everybody as you come on in. Welcome to another month of CSINext. We have a fabulous presentation we're getting ready for you that we're going to have presented to us today. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes and let people sort of come on in. So welcome, welcome. And I'm seeing a lot of familiar names, and always happy to see all of you. Um, During the course of the presentation, if you have questions or comments for our speakers, please go ahead and put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A, and I will feed them to our speakers so that they can answer your questions. And if please ask questions, you know, let's make this as interactive as possible. All right. And while we get ready, I will just kind of give you guys some my members, of course, give you some advanced exciting notice of what next month's presentation is going to be. Next month, we're going to hear from Keith Robinson, who's one of our own CSINext members, and he's going to talk about bridging the gap between Division 3 and Division 9, a new perspective. So he's going to talk about moisture in floors, mitigating moisture in floors, cracking, the whole 9 yards. It should be a really fascinating presentation because he is definitely one of the experts in that area. So we're just going to give it another 2 or 3 minutes. I hope everyone's doing well out there. I hope that the weird weather has been not affecting you too adversely. I know it's been very strange where I am. I know it's been strange all over the country. There's snow and rain and hail and sunshine and wind and all sorts of craziness. So, but and for the CSINext members, there's a couple of events coming up in the sort of industry calendar. If you aren't aware of it already, the SCIP meeting is going to be in Dallas this year, and that's going to be on June 12th through the 14th, which should be a fabulous event. And I'm hoping to see a bunch of you there. And then, of course, the CSI conference and Institute conference is going to be in Denver this year. And that'll be October 12th through the 14th.
Recording in progress.
Okay,
Sorry,
yeah.
that was my fault.
And you need to mute. There you go. I was gonna say you need to mute one of them. Yes, Wade. Spring it's an uncertain spring and an uncertain time. I don't know if you guys have all been having snow and weird weather. It's snowing one day and then it's 70 degrees the next day. So it makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm gonna give it just one more minute, and then we will proceed. In the meanwhile, I'd love to sort of introduce a bit our wonderful speakers here. We have Dawn Schwartzman, who is the president and CEO of Enriching Spaces, the well facility, and she's providing, it's a nationwide provider of contract furnishings, interior design, project management, installation services, and they partner with a lot of the global leaders in this. And then we've got Yasha, and he's a building performance analyst, and he's got all the abbreviations after his name. He's with Immersion Design, and was helped create, is helping to lead the movement to improve health and well-being in buildings and communities. So that puts us at, and I'm going to let, I'm not going to read the whole thing. They're going to tell you everything. They're vastly qualified and far more qualified than I am, and I really am excited for you to hear what they have to say. That being said, I'm going to turn it over. Oh, one more thing. If you have questions or comments or anything, put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A. We'll get to them during the program. Dawn, Yasha, take it away.
All righty.
Give me one moment. So, yes, my name's Yasha Og. As mentioned, I work for Immersion Design, and I'm a building performance analyst. We do a lot of government, higher education, and science and technology projects. And as mentioned, I have a lot of credentials after my name, and I use it to strategically figure out what elements of sustainability, resiliency, regenerative design can be included into the built environment and help indoor environments become healthier and better for the occupants. So I had the great pleasure of working with Dawn and Enriching Spaces to go through the well process with them. So our I guess guiding principles really aligned with around health and wellness, and it aligned with all of what Dawn's interested in. So Dawn?
Yeah, I'm happy to be with you again today, Yasha. We are teaming up a lot over the last couple of years as we're sharing the experience of our journey to Well Platinum, the first platinum well building in Ohio, 9th in the nation. And at the time, I didn't realize what that also was going to lead to in terms of us becoming more involved with Cincinnati 2030 district and our green umbrella and a number of other sustainable initiatives. Fortunately, in my role and my company, we have extremely forward-thinking vendor partners such as Herman Miller, which is now for me Miller Knoll since that merger, Interface, OFS, and a few others. So when we're already working with these leading vendors, it became just a joy to work on this project. So I'm looking forward to sharing this next bit of time with all of you, and please ask questions.
Yes.
Yasha, this is basically, I just wanted to put this up to remind the learning initiatives. I don't know if you are submitting this for credit, but this is what was submitted, is what your takeaways. I won't go through reading it. We'll get right into the presentation, but I just wanted to validate that for you all.
All right.
Oh, that's you, Yasha.
In general, as we all know, we spend the majority of our time indoors. And so our environment is one of the largest determinants of our overall health and well-being. And even here in Cincinnati and across the country, healthcare networks are required to undergo community health needs assessments. And these health assessments really look into what are the major drivers of people visiting hospitals. And a lot of them relate back to our physical and social environments, as well as our lifestyle and health behaviors. And as you can see from the pie chart, over 50% of what impacts us from a health standpoint is actually that physical and social environment. And here at Enriching Spaces, we were fortunate that we is set in a landscape with some bamboo groves and nice forest. And I'm actually looking out onto that forest from Enriching Spaces' corner
Spring is
office.
definitely here in Cincinnati. It was snowing a week ago, but it's like everything has burst forth, and it's quite magical right now today.
Yeah. And so we recognize that health really begins at home, and it is also impacted with the places that we work and all the places and spaces that we experience on a daily basis. And so what we really were trying to do, especially with this location, is how do we connect the indoors with the outdoors, and how do we use a rating system such as WELL or LEED or any of the sustainability rating systems to really bring that connection to impact our health. And so what we ended up or what Dawn, I guess, ended up deciding on is to pursue WELL building certification. And so if you're familiar with LEED, LEED is really looking at the sustainability and efficiency of buildings. And it provides a framework of credits and strategies on how to reduce and drive down energy efficiency and water efficiency. And it touches a little bit on material selections and indoor environmental quality, but it's really focused on the building itself. The WELL building standard and also the FitWell standard, those are really centered around people. And because we realize that we are the ones that actually use the buildings, these standards focus to measure and verify and monitor how the building features impact our health, safety, and well-being of us that actually use those buildings. And so we pursued the WELL building standard, and as Don will go into, we targeted for platinum and learned a lot along the way.
So more than ever before, our environment really is changing how we work and live, and what we eat, how we feel, how we get around. I think COVID really took the analysis for everyone personally to look at and see what they were happy with in their life and how they were working and what they were not happy with. So the timing really for us to get certified right in the midst of COVID was, I didn't realize what synchronicity there that would have, because this thought about where are we returning to work? Do I feel supported there? Does it feel healthy? All of that just came to the forefront.
So the WELL building standard really centers around 10 different major concepts. And these range from air quality and water quality to what we eat, to the how often are there chances for us to get up and move around, to how comfortable we are from a thermal and acoustic standpoint, as well as looking into the environmental and health impacts from the materials selected within the built environment, and ranging all the way through our mental health and community engagement. And it is based heavily upon the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we obviously need air to breathe, we need water to live, we need nourishment to live. And so it goes through the same Maslow's hierarchy of needs through this WELL standard. And it also, there's another program along with the WELL standard that looks at it from a community scale or a district scale, which starts to look at what does it mean to be a healthy community. We focused on the buildings, specifically on the building level for the Enriching Spaces project. And one of the important aspects related to WELL or the WELL building standard is that all of the features and recommendations within the standard all have current health data and research that is backing those those features of those built environmental strategies. It's not just random. They're not just randomly brought in as like, this is a good idea. There is scientific backing that's been globally scientifically researched and is backed up with multiple research studies.
Early on in our presentation, I always like to say that going for WELL certification is, I was a little naive at the beginning. It takes some fortitude. But the reality is just the knowledge that we can share about WELL buildings can be incorporated by anybody, small or large buildings. You can just take part of it at a time. So as you're listening today, maybe there'll be just a few initiatives that are going to resonate with you that you think, well, we could adopt that, we could do that, this or that. So I always like to suggest that the time and money should not be an obstruction to going ahead. Now, people ask me all the time, why did you do this? Again, there was some naivety, but to summarize, I'm fortunate enough to own the building. That gave me a lot of latitude. And the improvements we made definitely increased our building and property values, which was really validated by real estate appraisal that I recently had for with some refinance. And I was shocked at just the improvements from the outside, not only the beautification, but just the way it feels when you come into our environment, how noticeable that was. It does improve the health, safety, and well-being of occupants. If I were to lease out my building, it would be easier to lease, probably at a higher rate. And the community engagement opportunities expanded as we worked with the city of Forest Park, not only just talking about how could we be engaged in a healthy way with the rest of the community. Now, from a business owner, as the CEO and owner of Enriching Spaces, the number one benefit is attraction and retention of employees, and that's probably the number 1, 2, 3 issue facing, I think, business owners today. Improving the health and safety and well-being in a very obvious way of your employees. We took the WELL building knowledge and integrated it into our vision and mission and value statement, and it's just inherently practiced every day. And very particular to some of what you all do in your business, WELL building has really informed the way we think about our design, our material selections, and our furniture solutions. So interesting enough, when companies provide traditional corporate wellness offerings, on average 15% of the employees take advantage of that program. In the case of WELL, 100% of the occupants are going to benefit from working in that environment. It really doesn't take any action steps on their part. And basically the graph on the other part of your screen there is showing that we're already making the major investment as business owners in our people, and then we have diminished rate for rent, operations, and energy. But a lot of times the focus is not on taking care of that biggest investment. So WELL sort of flips everything on its head and changes the priorities. So this is just a little bit about our project. Where our building was built in 1989. It was half office and half warehouse at the time. And we are very fortunate to have been able at that time to pick out a wooded lot. I'm currently actually in the process of taking out all the grass on the property, going to more sustainable landscaping, reducing water, planting more native plants, getting chemicals off of the landscape, battery operated blowers, propane mowers, and really what started a few years ago with just building and some selections now has manifested in a very holistic way. So we, the project included upgrades on 2 floors, 6 different HVAC units, were involved. Some were newer, but in each case, they were upgraded for fresh air intake 24/7 and high filtration through MERV 13 filters and rebalancing. We also were not ADA compliant, so put a restroom on each floor. There was not only ADA, but family unisex compliance. Well building really focuses on holistic, non-discriminatory way of making your facility comfortable and available to all kinds of people. And so the only part that was really not a part of the project was on the main floor. There's still some dock and warehouse space, but new furnishings, finishes, paints, and floor covering were updated throughout. And that is really how I think getting into the materials part of it, I knew that we couldn't do this on my own. That was the naive part of this. So I searched for a WELL AP, and of course you saw all the other acronyms behind Yasha's name. That was really helpful in me understanding what it means to select certain paints and how to document fabrics and finishes and so forth.
So diving into some of the actual concepts categories related to air quality, as Dawn mentioned, we added more mechanical systems. We didn't add new systems to the building, but what we did do, we punched more holes into the building in order to bring in more fresh outdoor air, and as well as fitting those mechanical systems with new MERV 13 filters. We also invested in an air quality monitoring device, which helped actually start conversations around the cleaning products that are being used within the building, because we had one weekend where everything on the air monitor just spiked and everything went into the red, and we were wondering what happened. And so we, after looking what happened and which particulate or air particulate contaminants were affected, we realized that the cleaning company that does the carpet deep cleaning, they had come in and done their carpet cleaning over the weekend. And when we brought up that your cleaning products made all of our monitors spark up with bad air quality, and they were insistent that no, we use very environmentally friendly products. And we're like, well, that might say that on the label, but what the actual VOC levels in the space were, they just skyrocketed. And so we were able to show with data that the products that were being used for cleaning were not as environmentally friendly as we were hoping or thought they were. And from what I understand is that the cleaning company, as well as the Dawn, your cleaning lady that comes
cleaning ladies,
through,
yeah,
they have refined their process for cleaning, not just for here at Enriching Spaces, but for all their other locations that they do provide service as well. And so going through the air monitoring system and then also the air infiltration and more outdoor air quality upgrades, it actually provided a much better and cleaner and fresher air within the building, to the point where
extremely noticeable.
Yeah.
That I would say the week after, when people returned to work, where we had completed the HVAC work, we actually had several units that were not bringing in fresh air at all, and they were just recirculating. That was kind of shocking to me as a building owner. I guess I just didn't realize it, and I realized the habits that we might have for closing off fresh air when it's too cold outside. We found that we could run 24-hour fresh air coming in all the units, and we didn't see any increase in our energy costs. That was really revealing to me that the different thermostats turning things on and off throughout the day was really not an efficient way to operate. Obviously, there are very sophisticated, expensive systems out there, but that was out of, we couldn't afford that. So a couple other simple things that we did was that we just look at our phone monitor, our phones every day to see what the pollen count is, to see what the humidity count is, and we have screen doors, and we put little notes up, flip cards that say, hey, you can leave the screen door open today because the pollen counts are good, humidity is good, temperature's good, or please shut the door behind you today because pollen counts are high, that kind of thing. So it's just a really simple way to deal with that air quality too. And it sounds simple, but it really makes a difference to people who do suffer with allergies. It can immediately change their experience. Also, WELL really focuses on no smoking, not only in the building, but on the property and the signage and education that goes along with that.
Similarly to testing out the air quality, we also tested out the water quality. In general, here in Cincinnati, we have really good water. Our Cincinnati Waterworks is one of the best water cleaning purification companies nationally. And that's because we draw a lot of our water from the Ohio River, which, as you might imagine, does not have the cleanest quality to it. And so as a result, we do need to make sure that our water quality that gets sent out to everyone in the Cincinnati area is very clean. The part that we understood, though, is that even though the water coming out of Cincinnati Waterworks is clean and has a really high quality to it, we don't know what might be leaching into the water as it travels from where Cincinnati Waterworks sends it into the pipe distribution system to what comes out of the faucet here at Enriching Spaces. And so we made sure that when we went through the process that we got the water tested as well, especially the drinking water, to make sure that they didn't contain any harmful contaminants. And so the image that you see here is the well testing agent coming in and taking water samples from the quench system to send off to a lab for that water quality testing.
So along with just a couple more points, Yasha, on the water, WELL required that we develop a Legionella program, which is just educational. Our building has a low probability for that, but also getting more informed on plastics migration into what we drink and what we eat. So we definitely recommend we have glassware and recommend that people use their own drinking bottles and try to minimize serving water or beverages out of plastic bottles. Oh, one more thing is we don't have to go back to the slide, but hand washing is a big, big deal in WELL. And again, very COVID sort of the synchronicity of this, the signage, the instructions, importance on hand washing need to be just reminded throughout the facility, and providing very convenient ways that employees can wash their hands throughout the day without having to maybe go out to a restroom or have to go a far distance to wash their hands. So Nourishment was both fun and challenging because as a company owner, I had to make a commitment to serve when the company provides a lunch or snacks that they meet certain criteria. So a lot of study just went into what snacks and nourishment that we could provide, still allowing for some sugar and chocolate, but measuring grams of sugar, avoiding trans fats, limiting sizes of things, labeling snacks and items, using caterers that have nutritious options were all just policies that we implemented. There was some pushback, I admit it, but I'm not screening what employees want to bring in to eat. I'm just making a statement about what the company is going to endorse. And it's surprising when you provide some healthy snacks or snacks that meet these requirements. People really appreciate that when they're having maybe a little drowsiness in the morning, that they can get a little protein bar or something to get them through.
From a light category, Dawn, when she first had the building constructed in 1989, she made very good sure that there was a lot of natural light that filled the space. And so, as you can see in the top picture, there's a lot of natural light, and then a lot of the lighting that she brought in and had installed also is low glare fixtures. And so it really makes sure that there's an even light throughout the entire space. And this was important because from a well standpoint, it goes into looking at what is the color rendering index of lighting. It starts looking at glare. It looks at how much natural light is coming into the building, and then also starts looking into how does the lighting within the building affect your circadian rhythm. So we as humans, as animals, we have a deep connection with light and how it affects our sleep-wake cycles. And that circadian rhythm or that sleep-wake cycle is really dependent upon how much light and the light quality that comes into our body through our eyes. And so LED lights, normal LED lights, they kind of put us into this twilight zone of our body biologically does not know if we're awake or asleep or where we should be. And so we don't perform at our best levels, I guess, when we are working under LED lighting that is not tuned to circadian rhythms. And whenever we do spend a lot of time outdoors, we're usually very awake throughout the day because of the amount of light that's coming into our eyes. And then once the evening starts to set in, our body's biology is starting to tell us, like, it is time to go to bed, it is time to go to sleep, you need to now rest. And so that's usually why after we're outside for all day long, and even if we don't do anything outside, but just spend a lot of time outside, we start to be more tired in those evening hours. And so the science behind the well credit features tap into that and try to mimic that within the built environment so that people or employees have more restful sleep and are therefore also more productive when they come back to work the next day.
I have a question about the light that you used. I know that there are different light temperatures. There's warm light and cool light and what mimics daylight. Was there a conscious decision to use how are you was your plan with the light temperature and the light quality? Was it trying to mimic daylight throughout the space even where there wasn't direct daylight?
So
that's a good question.
Yeah.
I would say yes. Our main goal was to emulate daylight and have it consistent. That being said, it was very important to allow employee control of lights in a variety of spaces, in their own workstations, having task lights, but also in meeting rooms. I have ladies who like all the lights down, and I have ladies who like all the lights up. And there are distinct individual differences. So if you can provide, I think we added more dimmers, and we were very conscious of being able to, especially in conference rooms, meeting rooms, to be able to adjust that level of light at several degrees. And again, as Yasha was saying, not only having up-down light, that light that reflects, really avoiding having strictly down lighting makes a big difference too in the way people feel. Generally, depending on the light fixture, we were looking at 4,100, 3,500 to 4,100 renditions. But we spent a lot of time like actually bringing in lamps and trying them out. Is this the right color? Now in the design business we're in too, we find it very practical to be able to just look at everything in daylighting unless we know that we're going to be making selections for an environment that's maybe still has old incandescent lighting in it. But we see less and less of that.
Yeah,
if that answers your question.
I would also like to address that there is the color tuning light, which, as you mentioned, or in your question mentioned, that changes color or that can change color throughout the day. And that type of lighting it's a psychological impact on us, but it's not a biological impact. So if I have my light that is more white in the morning and then progressively throughout the day changes to more red, it gives me the psychological knowledge that the time is going through the day, but it doesn't actually impact the biology in me because it's still missing the specific nanometer range of light that natural daylight includes that sort of suppresses the melatonin within my body or increases serotonin levels.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sure if there are any lighting reps in today's presentation, they probably know the science behind it a lot more than I do.
And we could all go down the rabbit hole together on each one of these topics. Movement is so critical in the way we feel, and I think as a company owner, and I see a lack of this out in most corporate spaces, is not only making it possible for people to get up and move around and take micro breaks, but encouraging it, and so that people don't feel awkward getting up and doing that. So there's a number of ways that can happen. Is making really easy circulation paths to your copier, to your coffee, around your interior of your building, but then we really expanded on our exterior pathways so that some of our ladies are trying to get in a certain amount of steps in their week. Others are just wanting to take a little meditative walk, but it can make a big difference. We just were able to get our yoga going again. We do offer on-site yoga every other week, and that's been very popular as a stress relief and just stretching and movement. And learning about how at our work, even in our workspace, we can put stress balls under our feet or how to stretch. We're very fortunate is that everybody here does have a sit-to-stand workstation and an ergonomic chair that can all make a difference. So I would say providing a safe path for people to go outside, even several times a day, whether it's just a 5-minute walk or 10-minute walk, can really make a difference in their, in just the way they feel. Thermal comfort is one of the more challenging areas. I think just to define it, because you kind of want to throw it in with air quality, but it is really something quite different. It is really how comfortable you feel during the day. And we are a women-owned company, and we're all women of all different ages. So literally I can have a team at the conference table, and some of them will have brought a blanket, and some of them will be fanning themselves. So that accommodating that reality can make the difference in somebody's productivity and just the way they feel all day. If somebody's really chilled all day or just really profusely sweating, it really affects their performance and the quality of of their experience at work. So we do provide personal fans. We do also provide, we buy everybody a blanket when they come here, and we encourage, and by example, that it's all right to take your blanket into a conference room with you. So a lot of it is just about granting permission. And I think when we do our surveys in that, we do understand that thermal comfort is one of the, also, in addition to air quality, is one of the most pressing complaints that happens in most of our interior work environments. So we also give choice. I have some women who just gravitate to where the sun is. They'll go take their work over to a work area where the sunshine is coming in. It's interesting to see how different people, we allow people, they have workstations, but they can work anywhere in the facility. So they will move around, sometimes based on the view, the thermal comfort, or the solitude.
Or even the acoustics. From a sound standpoint, we did do preliminary sound testing just to get an baseline idea of what the sound quality and reverberation times within the space would be. And one of the things that Dawn provides here is music as a background neutral white noise machine almost that just plays in the back, and the volume can be adjusted by different zones throughout the building. And this was definitely one of our more challenging testing items, because we weren't sure how we were going to pass the acoustics requirements from WELL, because they were very specific and dialed in, and we knew that some of the areas within the building that are not regularly occupied by workstations have a longer reverberation time than what would be ideal. We do have plans in place on how to mitigate that when Dawn finds the time, mostly, to start addressing it. But this was definitely an interesting one, just to understand how much sound and how long sound takes for it to die down. This is probably the one that everyone's the most interested, is related to materials. So Dawn,
this is why I came to you.
Yes.
It's like, oh my goodness, this documentation makes me crazy.
Yeah. So from a materials standpoint, very similar to what LEED version 4 requires, is that materials put into WELL projects should have a whole slew of documentation surrounding it, be that from VOC certificates through Green Guard or Green Guard Gold to health product declarations or environmental product declarations, or declare labels or cradle to cradle certificates, or any of these different transparency documents. And so what we did is we looked at what did Dawn bring, what are the materials that Dawn reps or uses for her designs. So we first vetted through interface, which is the carpet that you see here in the picture as well as on the table. Then we also looked at OFS Brands, which is one of the furniture companies that Dawn has in her line, as well as Herman Miller. And next round, we'll be going through the Knoll products after this Herman Miller Knoll merger, to start looking at how do all those materials and what sort of transparency documentation is available for all these. We also started looking, as I mentioned when we were talking through the air section, about how cleaning products were impacted and affected, and how using the feather dusters that Dawn's cleaning ladies had used in the past were no longer acceptable, and they had to switch to microfiber cloths.
And that was a hard change for them. I mean, It really was. I had to change out the products that they were used to using, talk to them about microfiber, talk to them just about some different processes that had to be documented. And there was a point where I had to say, no, ladies, this is not a discussion. This is the new world. Now, ironically, this team uses the products they use here for the rest of their customers because it became one cleaning solution that just had two dilutions. Some things were really simplified, and the processes made sense. So I was happy the way it all turned out.
The, the cascade effect of that was very interesting to see and very exciting to see that, oh, we changed one thing at Enriching Spaces and it cascaded to other companies. And those other companies might not even be aware the benefit that they are receiving because of.
Well, and Donna used it in her marketing.
Okay.
She
Yeah.
said, well, we've got a client that is real strict about well building, and that was her selling feature, that
Perfect.
she had those processes in hand.
And then we also changed up the pesticides and applications of pesticides.
And that was pretty easy. And that was very educational. It was just meeting a certain tier, and instead of, I would say the big change is instead of just always doing the perimeters inside and outside, just sort of on account, by the month or whatever, we decided to just attack insects as they appeared. And we also did some caulking and sealing at points of entry for insects, and it really made a big difference. So now, for example, the small little spring ants are coming in and a few of those carpenter ants. So we'll just have them come out and we'll do the applications just for that instead of the mass sort of. Now when I think back to how we were doing it, I can't even imagine it.
Yeah, and we've seen the trickle go from not just here at Enriching Spaces, but also trickling to applications at Dawn's own home,
Mm-hmm.
but also some of her staff's homes as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And then one of the other exciting aspects that we implemented here at was the development of a mindful materials library.
That was really, Yasha, you and what you've done at Immersion was a real inspiration to me. We work with a lot of architects and designers, and they specify certain products. But when we're involved with the specifications or they allow us to suggest a substitution, our primary library has to meet certain criteria. And on this slide, you'll see on the left a list of different criteria that we use, and not only for what are the contents for that fabric or finish, but the social responsibility, thinking about freight, where does it really come from, a number of factors. And even an example I can give is one of our clients from the VA came in and she had all her palette laid out, and we told her about our library, and she said, well, can you just take what I have and substitute it with what would be considered, the healthier product selection. And for the most part, I mean, she just accepted all of it, and she felt better about her project because of that substitution. So I credit Yasha for getting us started. Now we're nerds too. So we keep our less healthy library out in the warehouse part of the office. So you have to really walk out there to get to that. But there are specifiers who are just insistent upon the products they use, and hopefully that'll change as years go by here now.
That was going to be my question, because I know a lot of samples have off-gassing issues, and they use backings, and they make samples up all the time, so they don't necessarily have a chance to cure out, and some of the chemicals dissipate as quickly as they would even in a regular built environment, because things just change. But when you're doing fresh samples all the time, you're getting a fresh influx of all that stuff.
Some of
Yeah.
it is that, and some of it is just the product that's being specified too. So you just really have to dig into the nuts and bolts of it. But you're right on
Yeah.
the
And one
all
of the things
guessing.
that we've so as Don mentioned, like this idea of the Mindful Materials Library, which is based on Mindful Materials, which is a nonprofit organization, which is a product database for transparency documentation. And so, how we did it for an immersions library is at first we required that we did it out of necessity to manage our library because we've started getting so many products and samples into our library that our library was bursting at the seams. So we needed some sort of criteria in order to pare down what was in our library just from a space standpoint. And so we used Mindful Materials product database as our guideline for it. And then once more and more companies and products started meeting the Mindful Materials criteria, our library started bursting at the seams again. So we needed to refine it even more to dial it back into manageable size. And so now we have a whole slew of requirements that are necessary for products to meet our library. And now I'm going through a fourth iteration almost of creating a database or a list of and shelves just dedicated to red list free materials. And I'm encouraging our interior designers and architects to use those products as the default if they can't find something, or to use as their basis of design. And if needed, something else can be substituted. But for the most part, we are trying to get our products to be as red list, have no red list chemicals within our products that we specify.
It's so helpful, Yasha. I mean, as fabrics and laminates or whatever comes into our library, to just catch that rep right at the beginning and say, these are our criteria. Just bring us the product that meets this. And it just it simplifies everything, and it also educates those reps a little bit more too. Some of them are just using their greenwash vocabulary, and it really helped define our library. And we have plenty to pick from still. It's great.
Just the
Highly
time
recommend it.
we're down to 8 minutes, so you.
Yeah, I realized that.
And
And
we're
so one
very
of the
close
things,
to.
one of the things that I'm sure as a instructor or as a specifier that it is difficult to find all this documentation from manufacturers. And so there are a couple of databases out there, like the ones that are shown here, that really easily, from a designer standpoint, I can visit these and find products that meet my specific criteria I'm looking for based on PSI division numbers. And so I highly recommend when we share this presentation to visit some of these databases, and majority of them, actually all of these, are free from a designer standpoint to use and review products. And so I use these on a daily basis when I vet materials coming in. I also recommend or try to encourage our product reps to know if their materials are in these databases, so that I know that if I'm looking for a specific product that it's in here. We'll rush through these next two very quickly.
Yeah,
from a mind,
we've already covered a little bit mind, but
yeah,
mental health has just come to the forefront for corporations today too. So providing nature-inspired spaces, restorative spaces within the workplace, supporting mental health, educating on sleep support, substance abuse, and so forth. Just taking it up a level and thinking about how does your space support mental health. And then And we usually also have some coaches in talking about that. And then community, we covered a little bit, but different ways that we get involved with our community is by our getting to know our fire department, our police department. We do our CPR training with them, developing emergency preparedness. We have a mother's room now for moms who are pumping, and then just talking to the city even about more extended walking paths and how can enriching spaces be a resource for other companies in our community. Obviously, our community is really proud of us. And this slide was just some pictures of our testing. Yasha and I are here. Actually, our team was working from home because of COVID, and this was really interesting for us to be a part of from really early in the morning till I think 11 at night, because we had to do nighttime light testing, but the tests were being FedExed out throughout the day for water, air, and different measurements. Obviously, we were nervous, but because we had done pre-testing, we were hopeful, and it turned out that we met the requirements. It was not by ourselves alone. You can see all the stakeholders in the project. Like Disney World, we tried to share the vision with every one of our contractors and what we were trying to do, and they really were enthused to participate, and that really made a difference for us as well. Since getting well certified, we also had already met a lot of the requirements for the health safety rating. Some of you might have seen this seal in advertisements. Just takes everything up to another level of documentation and measurement for health, safety, and well-being processes and protocols. And because of Yasha too, we are both a partner and a member in Cincinnati 2030 districts. There's 2030 districts all over the country. It's our commitment as a member to reduce our water and energy use by 50%, and we're already almost done with that by 2030. But as a partner, to be the well partner, to be able to share the education that we've gotten by going through this process. And then that just keeps expanding to these other areas for sustainability. So that's all she wrote for this presentation. But I hope that we've informed you a little bit about what the WELL program is. And if you have any questions, you can see our emails there. We're always happy to elaborate more on the specifics of our projects or any of these topics in general.
Excellent. Thank you guys very much. This was very, very interesting. You guys have learned so much and traveled so far. It's really exciting to see. And it sounds like none of this was really onerous or really difficult, or just it didn't take millions of dollars to get to a healthy building, which is extremely encouraging. That it's something that we can all do, and every little thing helps.
It
So
sure does.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for your presentation today. And thank you everyone for attending. Make sure you get us your CSI or AIA number for your accreditation. We will get that taken care of. Be sure you come back and join us next month. We'll be meeting in May on the 12th, where we're gonna talk about Division 3 and Division 9. So how concrete and finishes interact and work with each other. And yeah, make sure you take a screenshot of Dawn and Yasha's email addresses. So if you have questions, I'm sure that they've been incredibly generous with their time and knowledge, and I'm sure they will continue to be. So thank you very much. And we are at 1 minute too. So woohoo, we're on time for a change.
Thank you,
Sorry.
everyone.
Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Dawn. Thank you, Yasha.
Okay.
Really appreciate you taking the time. Oops.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Have a great
Taking some
day.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I'll see you all next month.